It's August 11, 1994. You're a neighbor on a quiet street in North Vancouver, British Columbia. Nothing unusual about the house next door. A modest home, heavily mortgaged, belonging to Nick and Lisa Masee, a retired banker and his stylish wife. Nick retired 6 months ago after 35 years at the Bank of Montreal. They socialize with the city's high rollers. They live like people with money. They do not have money. Tonight they have reservations at Trader Vic's in Coal Harbour. A business dinner. Nick would never miss it. Nick would certainly call if something came up. He doesn't call. He doesn't show. Nobody at Trader Vic's hears from either of them. The next morning someone notices the front door of the Masee home is unlocked. The security system is off. Their car is in the driveway. Their 17-year-old cat is inside. Their passports are on the table. And just inside the front entrance, 2 plastic zip ties. The kind police use for handcuffs. Left on the floor, pointing toward everything and explaining nothing. Nick and Lisa Masee are gone. They will never be seen again. Nick Masee was 55 years old when he disappeared. A man who had spent 35 years building a career at the Bank of Montreal, rising to head of private banking, socializing with Vancouver's most colorful stock promoters. Murray Pezine, Harry Mall, Nelson Scalbania, Herb Capazzi. He knew how money moved. He knew how money hid. Lisa met Nick in 1984 when she was a 29-year-old hairdresser at Yakoi Hair Design on Cambie Street in Vancouver. Nick was one of her clients. They married. It was the second marriage for both. They built a life that looked more prosperous than it was. Nick pulled in around $85,000 a year as a banker. Their modest North Vancouver home was heavily mortgaged. They owed $70,000 on their credit cards. Their getaway was a timeshare in Maui. But they moved through Vancouver's elite social circles as if none of that were true. They had the connections, the manners, the clothes, and the confidence. What they didn't have was the money to sustain it. In January 1994, Nick retired from the Bank of Montreal and became a director of Turbodyne Technologies Inc., a California-based company that traded on the Vancouver Stock Exchange. He was banking on it making him rich. Forbes magazine had called the Vancouver Stock Exchange the scam capital of the world, but Nick knew these waters. He'd been swimming in them for years. 6 months later he and Lisa were gone. 3 months before their disappearance, Nick and Lisa made a secret trip to the Cayman Islands. They told no one where they were going, only that they had to go away. They told no one why. The Cayman Islands, a jurisdiction famous for offshore banking, financial privacy, and the movement of money that shouldn't be moved. A retired banker with 35 years of experience in private banking, carrying debt he couldn't service, connected to the Vancouver Stock Exchange, and 3 months before he vanished, a secret trip to the Caymans. That trip has never been adequately explained. Then there is the matter of Fred Hoffman. Hoffman was an accountant who did business with Nick Masee. He disappeared a few years before the Mazes, and roughly $10 million of his clients' money disappeared at the same time. One of those clients was a retired anesthesiologist from Seattle whom Nick had introduced to Hoffman. The anesthesiologist lost $3 million. After Nick Masee disappeared, the anesthesiologist became completely unreachable. 3 people connected to the same financial web. All of them gone. A witness reported seeing Nick and Lisa at the Garden Lounge of the Westin Bayshore Hotel between 6:30 and 10:30 that evening. Nick was wearing a jogging suit. They split a bottle of wine. The details of what happened after 10:30 p.m. on August 11, 1994 are unknown. What investigators found when they entered the Masee home tells part of the story, but only part. The unlocked door, the deactivated security system, the car in the driveway, the passports, the cat, and the 2 plastic zip ties just inside the front entrance, similar to the ones police use for handcuffs. The zip ties are the most diagnostically significant physical evidence in this case. They could mean a kidnapping. Someone came to that door, restrained both Nick and Lisa, and took them. They could mean the opposite. Someone who knew exactly how to stage a scene left them deliberately, to create the impression of violence where none occurred. No bodies have ever been found. No ransom demand was ever received. No communication of any kind has ever come from Nick or Lisa Masee. The RCMP raised the reward to $50,000 in 2019. Investigators say they believe Nick and Lisa were killed for reasons unknown. Nick's children have spent 30 years asking the same question. The case remains officially listed as missing with suspicious circumstances. It has never been solved. The Nick and Lisa Masee case presents the most financially complex behavioral puzzle in your catalog. A disappearance where the behavioral evidence points in two directions simultaneously and refuses to resolve into a single narrative. Begin with the two behavioral frameworks that define every analysis of this case. The RCMP investigator put it plainly. I've got missing people that I assume are murdered because they are not the kind of people who would be able to disappear. But Masee could. He was a sophisticated guy. They both had passports from other countries, they had lived around the world, he understood international banking, and they had some money stashed aside. Most missing persons cases resolve behaviorally toward one of two explanations. The person was taken, or the person left. The Masee case refuses to resolve because Nick Masee had the skills, knowledge, and international connections to execute either scenario deliberately. The behavioral case for voluntary disappearance begins with the Cayman Islands trip. The Cayman Islands are not a vacation destination for a couple living beyond their means on a Bank of Montreal salary. They are a financial infrastructure destination, a place where money is moved, hidden, and protected from future scrutiny. A secret trip to the Caymans 3 months before disappearing, combined with Nick's 35 years of international private banking experience, suggests someone who was preparing an exit rather than planning a vacation. The financial pressure is the behavioral trigger. The debt, $70,000 on credit cards, a heavily mortgaged home, combined with the failed promise of Turbodyne Technologies and the missing $10 million connected to Fred Hoffman, creates the profile of a man whose financial world was closing in. Behavioral science consistently identifies financial desperation as one of the strongest predictors of identity flight, the decision to abandon an existing life when the alternative is facing consequences that feel unsurvivable. A couple staging their own disappearance does not leave zip ties at their own front door. That detail serves no purpose in a staged exit and creates precisely the kind of forensic question investigators need to answer. Zip ties left at the entrance imply external actors. They imply restraint. They imply someone came to that house and left with two people who were not free to refuse. The missed dinner reservation adds weight to this theory. The Masees had standing reservations at Trader Vic's that evening for a business dinner. Nick Masee was a 35-year career banker, the kind of man who called when he was going to miss something. The failure to call, to cancel, to communicate in any way, is behaviorally inconsistent with a man who chose to disappear that night. Voluntary disappearance requires preparation. A man who has prepared to vanish cancels his dinner reservation so that the timeline of his disappearance starts later rather than sooner. The behavioral evidence points most strongly toward a third theory that incorporates both: coerced departure. Someone connected to the Hoffman financial disaster, the missing $10 million, the 3 clients who all became unreachable, came to the Masee home on August 11, 1994, used zip ties to control the situation, and left with Nick and Lisa. Whether they are still alive somewhere under assumed identities, or whether they died that night and their bodies were disposed of by people who knew how to make things disappear, has never been established. What the behavioral evidence can establish is this: the Masees were connected to serious money and serious people. The Vancouver Stock Exchange of the late 1980s and early 1990s was not a legitimate financial institution. It was, as Forbes put it, the scam capital of the world. Nick Masee spent 35 years in that world, knew its participants personally, and in the final months of his life was investing in a VSE company while carrying debt he couldn't service. In that world, when money goes missing, the people connected to it sometimes do too. Nick's children have been searching for answers for 30 years. The reward is $50,000. The RCMP believes they were murdered. The zip ties have never been explained. Nick was 55, Lisa was 39. They split a bottle of wine at the Weston Bayshore on the night of August 11, 1994, and walked out into the Vancouver night. Nobody has seen them since.